I'm at a place now where, like I want to take what I find to be super fights. I don't want to fight dangerous up and comers anymore. I want to fight dangerous, established champions. So Tom can have the heavyweight championship. I don't really care about it. That my value doesn't lie in belts anymore. I've created something much bigger. I want prayer.
It's horse beef. What's going on, guys? Fucking Jon Jones did it. The GOAT did it, right? He beat the old man Stipe. And I know I picked Stipe, right? But sometimes sacrifices must be made for the greater good. I had to put it out there into the universe just to enhance the chances of it happening. My perfect prediction record be damned. Ultimately, I didn't care because, as you guys know, I do have a 100% pick rate. I've never got a pick wrong in my life, but I had to sacrifice this one for the greater good, and that's what real testosterone-ridden men do. Sometimes you have to make the hard calls, right? And you have to pick Stipe despite the logical choice of Jon Jones. Shout out to White Piece MMA, another testosterone-ridden MMA YouTuber who went against the grain and put his 100% accurate pick rate on the line as well. So shout out White Piece MMA. Go subscribe to him if you haven't already. Just like Stipe here, we both dare to be great. It didn't go well, right? Because Jon Jones pieced him up, and I think we saw what a lot of people who were picking Jon were expecting to happen, is that Stipe is fucking old, and this long layoff did him no favors and ended up looking pretty slow. We did see some vintage Stipe moments, like where he baited Jones in, slipped off, landed a nice right hand, did land a couple of decent shots, but ultimately his shots looked so slow, so labored, even in the first round, and looked to have little to no effect. Like there was just no danger in there from Stipe towards Jon Jones. You could say it's just because Jon is that good, but I think what we saw was, once again, to reiterate, Stipe is just out of it. He's out of his prime. He's washed up, and it's unfortunate. And I think the question must be asked of what actually is the point of this fight now that it's ended? Now that we've seen the way that Stipe actually does look at the age of 42 after this long layoff, what was the point of this fight? Because this was very clearly always going to be his very last fight in the UFC, and the fact that the UFC did not even have an ounce of respect for as they were building him up to be, right, the greatest heavyweight of all time, according to the UFC themselves. So why was he not given a proper send-off? Carla Esparza got this emotional send-off where Joe Rogan was crying, right? Oh my God, it was so beautiful. The fucking Cookie Monster got a better send-off than Stipe Miocic, right? Most title defenses in heavyweight history, the greatest heavyweight of all time, right? According to the UFC themselves. But you don't even give him a send-off. He just says, I'm retiring, blah, 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 blah. And then he's gone? That's it? Are you kidding me? Fucking clown show. It was just a Jon Jones, and I hate to use this term, but it was a glaze fest. The commentary could not stop shitting on Stipe while hyping up Jon Jones' performance, and everything he's doing in there is the greatest thing that they've ever seen, right? It's fantastic. And it was a good performance, but it was also a good performance against a washed up Stipe. In hindsight, of course, even though I picked him, I still very much recognize the possibility that Jon Jones will go out there and make it look easy against him. But ultimately, it's the same reason as to why you would pick Jake Paul against Mike Tyson, right? If Mike Tyson was to win, it's because he's Mike Tyson. And if he was to lose and get dominated, it's because he's 58 years old. And I think the same thing can be said about Stipe Miocic, right? If he was to win this fight, it's because he's Stipe Miocic, the greatest the greatest heavyweight of all time. And if he was to lose and get dominated, which he did, it's because he's just old and washed up, right? A prime Stipe would have given Jon a lot more problems than this. I think is factually correct. If you disagree, that's fine. You can disagree all you'd like. But yeah, man. Not overly impressed by Jon's performance, but at the same time, I have to give him credit because he did what he had to do, put some hands on Stipe. The hands looked pretty good, man. The jab was great. Jab was really great. That stabbing front kick to the body was landing at will and clearly having an effect on Stipe. From the first one that landed, I knew, oh shit, okay, we're in for a long night here. But I'm surprised it took Jon so long to actually get Stipe out of there because, like I said, man, Stipe had nothing for Jon from the beginning, right? He had nothing for Jon. I thought the superior testosterone profile of Stipe would be enough to get it done against Jon Jones, but to no avail. But it was an impressive finish at the end of the day, right? To see a heavyweight pull off a spinning back kick to the body to actually crumble his opponent in that way, like the way he set it up as well. He broke down Stipe's body from the beginning, came in, game planned perfectly, and executed perfectly, as Jon Jones actually does tend to do, right? Of course. beautiful spinning back kick. I can take nothing away from the finish itself. It was beautiful. The grappling was dominant. He's clearly the best grappler at heavyweight. No one can hang with him on the ground. It's clear. No one can, right? He ragdolled Stipe, a beautiful outside trip, and then delivered some of the most brutal ground and pound with elbows I've seen in quite a while. Jon Jones, one of the best of all time with ground and pound, especially when it comes to his elbows. And he proved it once again. But once again, dude, it takes a lot away when you just factor in the way that Stipe looked. It was not vintage Stipe, but at the end of the day, we can only really judge what is put in front of us. And we saw Jon and Stipe fight. Anyone picking Stipe who was banking on him looking like anything like his vintage self was wrong, like myself. And to touch once again on the horrible commentary and just the absolute circus, like the clown show going around, acting like Jon Jones doing this to Stipe is some unheard of shit. But you can't have both, right? Because on one hand, you have the commentators talking about how old and slow Stipe looks, and then the next second, bigging up how well Jones is doing in that fight. So which one is it? Is Stipe old and slow and washed up, or is Jon Jones performing well? Because both cannot be true at the same time. I suppose they can, but if the fact that Stipe is old and washed up is true, then Jon Jones' fantastic performance has to be brought down a few pegs, and we need to actually scale it back a little bit. But those are two great dominant performances from Jon Jones so far throughout his heavyweight career. Looks like he's going to continue avoiding Tom Aspinall if what we saw in the post-fight press conference is to be true, which is pathetic. Once again, it looks like he is more gunning for the fight with Alex Pereira because he knows, and we all know, that he'll just shoot for legs and make it look very easy against him on the ground because he's very, very clearly the best grappler in those heavier divisions. And I would give Alex Pereira a very, very small chance if this fight was to be made. Would it generate hype? 100% because of the names involved. But at the end of the day, man, stylistically, it's very clear what Jon Jones is going for. He's going for those padded legacy victories against stylistic mismatches that favor him. It's clear. Do I care anymore? Not really. Just wanted to see him lose to Stipe at this point. Couldn't care less about Jon Jones' career going forward, to be completely honest. But let's get into the rest of the card here and see how the rest of the fights shaped up. Veronica Hardy versus Eduardo Mora. Got us started on the early prelims here. It was a pretty boring fucking fight. No bad intentions from either lady. Veronica Hardy is just too small, man. She looks so small compared to Eduardo Mora. These big Brazilian chicks just have such a physical advantage over these less butch-looking females in their respective divisions, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, I picked Eduardo Mora because she looked more butch than Veronica Hardy, and foolproof method, although we might be proven wrong later on down the line or later on this card. Let's see how it shapes up, man. Oban Elliott versus Basil Hafez. I did pick Oban Elliott as well, so good start to the card for my predictions. I didn't think he would get a KO. I thought that he would ultimately win a decision. But yeah, nice overhand right that he found in the third round, put Hafez down. Yeah, Hafez has never proven to be as good as he seemed to be after he went to war on short notice with JDM. But that's cool. Good win for Oban Elliott. Then Nickal versus Ramiz Brahimaj. Pick Brahimaj. What did I pick? I think I may have picked decision here, but Ramiz did put him out with a beautiful right hook over the top. Nasty shot. Nickal surely is going to be cut from the UFC. Good win there. Then we move on to the prelims here. Marcin Tybura versus Jonathan Deniz. I picked Jonathan Deniz. I just assumed that the young knockout artist could potentially get it done, but Marcin Tybura weathered the storm, got dropped, got hurt real bad, and then put on the pressure in the second round. Yeah, great TKO for Marcin Tybura. He just always proves me wrong. Whenever I pick against him, he seems to prove me wrong, unless, of course, I'm picking Tom Aspinall against him. And then we get into David Onama versus Roberto Romero. I picked David Onama to win this fight. I think I actually picked, second round TKO? I might have picked decision, but I think it was a TKO I predicted, and he looked okay. Not overly impressed by the performance, but okay. And then we get into the next fight here, Jim Miller versus Damon Jackson. Now, this is the one I am very happy to get wrong. I thought that Jim Miller would have proven to have been washed after he got beat up bad by Bobby Green at UFC 300. I thought Damon Jackson would maybe just get the win based off of the old weathered self of Jim Miller. Not correct, right? The jiu-jitsu of Jim Miller is so high level that it doesn't seem to matter how many times he gets knocked out or he gets beat down. The man can always find a submission. Nasty guillotine. Very happy to get this one wrong. Then we get into Jonathan Martinez versus Marcus McGee. Got this one right as well. I always thought that Jonathan Martinez was always overrated, a bit too much of a leg kick merchant. and it almost worked out for him, man. In the third round, he did hurt Marcus McGee's, I believe it was his right leg, because he does fight out of southpaw predominantly. Hurt that right leg real bad, and Marcus McGee was having a hard time. But he is a very technical striker. I enjoy watching Marcus McGee, although I feel like sometimes he relies on the fight being too clean. Right, I feel like a more scrappy bantamweight will be able to put it on Marcus McGee and give him a lot of problems. But I think as far as technique goes, he's right up there, man. In the UFC, he is very, very skilled, very technical, especially on the feet. Very quick as well. Great combination puncher. I enjoy watching him fight. I really do. Although he's getting up there in age, so I hope that he stays more active going forward, because I do ultimately enjoy watching a Marcus McGee performance. He's a legit fighter. He's very good. And then we get into the main card here. Mauricio Rufy versus James Lontop. Now, Lontop, I think, took this fight on short notice, and it ended up being a catchweight fight. And he looked a lot bigger than Rufy in there. He looked humongous, dude. He looked fucking huge. But Rufy put a beat down on him. Looked more human in this one. I think we can chalk that up to the last minute opponent change and the weight change as well, because Lontop was able to eat a lot of those shots from Rufy. Even though Rufy was hurting him, Lontop was able to eat a lot of them, and being a Peruvian person as well, of course he's going to have a crazy chin. But Rufy was just styling on him, knocked him down with a beautiful, like, no-look left hook as well. I can't wait to see what Rufy does next. Just give him a ranked opponent. He is ready. Man looked awesome. He looked awesome last night. Then we get into Viviane Araujo versus Karina Silva. Now, I picked Karina Silva because of the same logic as with the first female fight on the card, and I was actually wrong with this one, dude. Viviane Araujo, She went against the grain, won this one by decision, and I found this fight to be weird, man. Joe Rogan's commentary all night was weird, but it was almost like he was rooting against Karina Silva by the end of it, which was strange. Like, the commentary team should remain objective, yet it seemed like he was rooting against Karina Silva. Very, very strange commentary once again. Joe Rogan, how he still has a job is beyond me. Then we move on to the next fight here, Bo Nickal versus Paul Craig. Now, worst fight on the card, very, very possibly. I would say it was even worse than Veronica Hardy versus Eduardo Mora. This fight sucked. You want to know what Bo Nickal has on the feet? Right? When he can't dominate his opponents via grappling, you know what he has on the feet? Oh, look at that. I have a right overhand. Oh, look what else I have. Oh, I can switch stances. I can throw left overhand too. It's all he has. He is one of the worst strikers I've seen in quite some time. He just spams overhands. That's all. The fact that Paul Craig was able to have any level of success on the feet against him, all Paul Craig was doing was spamming the right kick. That is all. He had nothing for him, and Bo Nickal should have made it look easy. Like I expected, he got the win as I predicted, but I'm not impressed, dude. I feel like the hype has been way too overblown with Bo Nickal, and I think today we need to just come to the agreement that we need to reel back all the hype with him. He may not even be a top 15 fighter at this point. I don't know, dude. I'll have to see more from him going forward. He's still young, and I just hope he's not drinking the Kool-Aid, you know what I mean? Because he's just clearly not as good as we all have been convinced that he is. And then we have Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler, dude. This was a great fight. I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't even a great fight because these guys decided to scrap it out. It was a great fight because of Michael Chandler being a dog, man. He weathered some storms in this fight, but I wasn't overly impressed with Charles Oliveira's decision to play it real safe at times, just hold on to the back, lay and pray, man. Like, I know a lot of people like to complain about the Marabs and the Bilal Muhammads of the world, but Charles Oliveira was doing his fair share of lay and pray. I was actually surprised that the ref didn't step in to separate them. We've seen referees step in to separate the action when far more action was happening than what we saw with Charles Oliveira against Michael Chandler at times. There was, I would say, too much downtime for this to be considered a barn burner, but there were moments, right? Chandler had his moments where he stood up with Charles backpacking him and slammed him 2 times at the end of the 5th round, which was fun to watch, right? But ultimately, it was a dominant performance by Charles Oliveira with that 5th round potential turnaround from Chandler, man. When he starts swinging, there is not a lightweight on the planet, I don't think, who can truly, truly eat too many of those shots from Chandler. He throws bombs. He's fun to watch. A little dirty, man. There were some back of the head shots being thrown at Charles Oliveira, but he did survive. Ultimately, the shit was crazy. It was a fun fight at times, although very boring at times. Good fight overall. Fight of the night, very potentially, but I would say it was probably Mauricio Rufy versus James Lontop, although this fight was just behind probably, although it wouldn't surprise me if this one was named fight of the night just because of that final round, you know. But as far as an overall fight goes, Rufy versus Lontop was a great time, but this card overall I thought was a disappointment. It was a letdown. Unfortunately, Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic wasn't the fight that a lot of us were expecting it to be or hoping it to be. A lot of it wasn't even really down to logic. It was just blind hope, hoping that Stipe Miocic would have enough in it to get it done against Jon Jones, just like anyone picking Mike Tyson was picking Mike Tyson for that exact same reason, right? Just hoping for the best. But we shot for the stars on this one. Unfortunately, we came up short, and that's just as simple as it is, man. But yeah, let down of a card, but we have Jan versus Figueiredo around the corner, so I'm excited for that one. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching as always. Let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts on the card were, what you thought about my pick of Stipe. If you want to roast me for that, you feel absolutely free to do so in the comment section below. Appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you on the next one.